Syria, the country that has been suffering a 2-year-long civil war, claiming over 100,000 lives, has garnered much public debate in the past week, as Congress is expected to vote this week on whether to authorize the use of force in Syria. Joining me today are two YaLa Young Leader members, here to deal with the issue that is on everyone's mind. Should an international military action be taken against the Assad regime? Joining me is Hiba from Lebanon, a graphic designer and freelance photographer, and Sahar, a student from Paris studying law and political science, originally from Morocco. Hiba, you are first.
Okay, I'm against an intervention on Syria because it's not an international intervention. It's basically an American intervention, like the one that happened on Iraq and Afghanistan. And it's like, we all know what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan when the U.S. intervened. They said that, the USA said that there was nuclear bombs or nuclear weapons in Iraq, and that was basically the cause why they attacked Iraq. But then, when they attacked Iraq, it was like a mess. They killed people. There was like a huge negative side, and basically they didn't find any nuclear bombs or weapons. And after the USA left Iraq, it left about 10,000 employees working for her in the country. I can say clearly that the US's aims to intervene in Syria is not because of Assad. It's not because of the killings of people done by Assad or by the revolution. It's basically only because of the oil and gas. So it's basically a power battle for her. And it's clear from Iraq and Afghanistan. Like from my point of view, I see that the USA only wants to intervene in the places where there is oil or gas. And beside that, I'm against the intervention because it will affect on Lebanon too. Because as you all know, Lebanon and Syria are like allies since like forever. So an intervention on Syria will affect on us too. There will be a war on both of us. And that's it, I guess.
Sahar, would you like to respond?
Okay, first I would just like to remind everyone it is an international intervention because in Amman it's not only the USA that came and said we're all going to intervene. It was a coalition of British, French, American officials as well as Jordanian, Turkish, Saudi and Qatari officials with the rebels discussing what they could aim or not. So the problem is that, of course, you cannot intervene in the Middle East unless you actually have the approval of the USA and you have the USA being sort of like a chaperone of all of this. But it's not only the USA going in it. Of course, since then, British kind of like said no to the intervention, but it's not only the USA deciding where to go. They are deciding the aims with the rebels and they are deciding what they are going to aim at through airstrikes. Second, since you spoke about, of course, the USA intervening when they have interest, it's true, and we saw it with Iraq, it's also true, except that in Iraq it was a normal state things were going normally, and all of a sudden the USA decided to invade it. Now it's been 2 years, and it's not the first time that Syrians have claimed that al-Assad used chemical weapons. Already when there was a siege on Homs in Baba Amr, they were claiming that chemical weapons were used. Second, in Iraq, nobody was holding banners telling, please, USA, we want a no-fly zone on Iraq, come save us from Saddam. We never heard of this. The USA all of a sudden brought all of this. But in Syria, in protests, Syrian people were holding banners asking the international community to act, to put a no-fly zone on Syria. So it's not coming out of nowhere, if I can say. Basically, some Syrians have, from the beginning, claimed that they would like help from outside. The third thing is that, of course, there is oil in Syria. It's in very, very, very minor quantity. I mean, it's almost, the USA have more to lose by going to Syria solely for the little oil they have in the east and Kurdish regions rather than go in there and fighting. I mean, it's absolutely, they're not going to make any profit out of it because Syria has very, very, very little oil compared to the oil that the USA can have access to through Saudi Arabia and other countries. So really, it is not worth it in terms of, I mean, in financial terms, to go in Syria just for the little oil they have. Last thing is, of course, Syria, as I said, is not the same thing than Iraq because a clash already started. You already have massacres. So yes, of course, when the USA acted in Iraq, there were horrible massacres. There were use of chemical weapons that basically destroyed whole regions of Iraq, and we can see it today in Fallujah. But in Syria, all I'm asking is, can it possibly be any worse than what we already are witnessing on the ground? Can it be worse than women and little girls being raped by the militias of al-Assad? Can it be worse than civilians, hundreds of civilians dying every day? Can it be worse than 165 dead, 100 political prisoners in al-Assad's jails? Can it be any worse than this? Of course, Iraq turned out to be a mess. The thing with Syria, it's already a mess, and it's all al-Assad's fault. And last thing to conclude on Lebanon, Lebanon is already involved. It's quite, I mean, kind of like the policy of the ostrich to kind of like say, no, Lebanon is going to fall down with Syria too. Lebanon is already intervening in this because Hezbollah have been intervening in Syria since the beginning. It's already sent soldiers, so Lebanon is already intervening.
Hiba, this is your chance for a rebuttal to Sahar's comments that Syria is not like Iraq.
Okay. Well, first, I would like to reply on Sahar about the evidence of using chemical in Syria. What are the evidence? Is it like because they only had a video taping people lying on the floor? Like anyone can actually record that. Second of all, not all the Syrian people are supporters of the so-called revolution. Even after having this revolution, a lot of people whom they were supporters of it have become supporters of Assad or just stayed on the side. So I can actually say that half of the Syrian people are not supporters of the revolution. So you can't say all of the Syrian people are supporting the revolution and supporting the intervention in Syria. The banners, the people holding banners saying that we want intervention, it's the people who are supporting the revolution, not most of the Syrian people. And about the oil in Syria, there's actually a huge amount of gas in Aleppo, and that is where the real battle is going on. And as for the U.S. intervention, since when did really the U.S. Cared about what other countries, whether other countries are with or against this intervention? And because I heard just today that actually Obama is want to perhaps attack Syria without the okay from the other countries, if only the Congress said yes to this intervention, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay. First, I'll respond on the evidence of chemical weapons. I'd like to say maybe it would be good for people who are interested in seeing why the rebels are saying there was use of chemical weapons to actually watch the videos that the rebels are putting on YouTube. It's not just about filming people dead on the floor. The thing with chemical weapons is that they leave like traces on human body, on the skin of the dead, which can only be done by chemical weapons. As I said, it's not the first time they claimed chemical weapons were used. And on other videos, you can clearly see dead children who have absolutely like no bleeding in their body. They were not shot by bullets or anything else, but their skin are showing proofs of the use of chemical weapons because the skin was irritated by the chemical weapons. So it's not just about people lying on the ground. The doctors have been showing with details. Of course, the videos are very graphic. So in general, videos of Syrians being dead are very graphic. So, but if you watch, they actually show you why they claim chemical weapons were used. So that's for that claim of yours. Second, when you say half of the Syrian people are not for the revolution, first I ask myself, I wonder where you take that number from, and I would personally like to know what half of the Syrian people think, and for that we would need free elections, which hasn't taken place in Syria since 1961. Maybe it's time to let Syrian votes and know for real what they actually want. And this is not going to happen under al-Assad. I'm sorry to say this, but it seems pretty obvious to everyone. My third point about the gas being present in Aleppo, I didn't say Syria doesn't have any resources. Syria does have resources, but as I said, it's very, very minor compared to the other sources that the USA can have access to. And for gas, precisely, I'm asking you, why would the USA go intervene in Syria, where it's such a boiling region, where they have so much to lose, and when in fact they don't even want to get there, for the little gas, even though it's a lot in terms of financial, I mean, financially for Syria, it's a lot, but compared to other gas resources in the region, why would they go to Syria when they could, I don't know, for example, intervene in Lebanon, which has had a feud with Israel over huge, huge gas field in the Mediterranean Sea? Or why would it go at war anyway, since they are allies with Israel, who has discovered Tamar and Leviathan in Mediterranean Sea, which are the biggest gas fields that have been discovered in the last decades? It's absolutely ridiculous for the USA to go to Aleppo for the little gas there, when their best ally in the region has the biggest gas fields that have been discovered in the last decade. And last thing about Obama, of course, it says that he will supposedly still intervene without the support of the British support and French support. Again, I'm reminding you that it is done in agreement with the rebels and with Jordan officials, Turkish officials, Qatari officials, and Saudi officials. So just because Great Britain and France are do not want to intervene in the end, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden everybody just brushed it off and only the EU-USA are going in.
Thank you, Sahar. Hiba, now it's your time for a closing argument. Give your view in 2 sentences, 3 sentences. Say what you really believe and why you believe it.
Well, I hope that there won't be a military intervention in Syria, because this will affect on us in Lebanon, and there will be a huge war in the area. And I know that it's not as hard for the people who live outside the Middle East to say yes, go for the intervention, because they don't really understand and know what does it mean for having war in our area. We have been living wars ever since I'm born. I've lived Israeli wars, I've lived a part of the civil wars, so it's not easy for us to keep on living these wars. So I hope there won't be a military intervention.
Thank you. Hiba. Sahar?
Yes, I would just like to say that people have to think in terms of humanist values. We are not in a day and age where we can claim we don't know what's happening or we didn't know that something might happen. I would like to say that there are millions of refugees that have fled there, and they didn't choose to lose their houses. They didn't choose to lose families. They didn't want war either, but it's just the reality and how things are, and they want freedom and dignity. And I would just like to tell people that they have to inform themselves. They have to ask people on the ground. They have to ask refugees, ask for their personal experience, and ask themselves if in 30 years they will be able to bear the moral consequences of having taken stances that directly or indirectly helped al-Assad in killing his own people and killing civilians. I am personally not ready to take to bear that moral consequence, especially after hearing so many Syrian refugees who don't want war either. It's not like they want to live in war, but I cannot bear that moral consequence. Neither can they, and neither should anyone on earth, actually.
Thank you very much, Sahar, and I'd like to thank both of you for being open today to discuss these issues. This week is going to be an interesting week, I'm sure. Thank you.